Hey there, hope you're having a wonderful day. In this video, we're going to go over friend functions in C++. So friend functions are an extension of operator overloading in C++. So in the previous few videos, we covered the topic on operator overloading, and basically we've covered arithmetic operators, comparison operators, conversion operators, and we also covered non-member functions. And if you haven't seen those videos, I definitely recommend you check them out first before continuing with this one. But just to go over what we have, I'm going to expand this fraction class. And I basically removed all the operators that we overloaded just to make the fraction class less crowded. So let's expand this. And you can see a fraction is represented by a numerator and denominator. So we have numerator and denominator as data members. We also have a constructor, setter and getter for numerator, setter and getter for denominator, and we have a method to print out the fraction. So currently, here you can see I've created a fraction and I passed in 11 and 15 for numerator and denominator. And I'm trying to create another fraction over here by adding a fraction and an integer, in this case 2. So if I add 11 over 15 plus 2, this is equal to 11 over 15 plus 2 times 15, because when you add an integer to a fraction, you have to convert the integer to a fraction, and you do so by multiplying the integer with the denominator. So in this case, 2 times 15 gives us 30 over 15, okay? And this will give us 41 over 15. Now, I can't do this because we do not provide support for overloading the plus operator, so I can do that over here. And in this case, I'm going to return a fraction, and the method name is just going to be operator and the symbol for the operator, which is plus. And here I'm just going to take in an integer, num. So we can create a new fraction object by adding the existing fraction with an integer. So the new numerator is going to be the current numerator plus num times denominator. And the new denominator is going to be denominator. And here I'm just going to return a new fraction. So I pass in new numerator and new denominator. Now if I scroll back down, you can see we no longer have the error when we try to add a fraction and an integer. So now if I save and run the program, you can see we get 41 over 15. Now what if I want to flip the order? So instead of fraction plus integer, what if I want integer plus fraction? So here I'm going to do fraction frac 3 is equal to 2 plus frac 1. And you can see we get an error. So even though we supported the plus operator, what we're actually doing is frac 1 dot operator plus, and we pass in 2. Now when you flip the order, you are basically doing 2 dot operator plus of frac 1. And we don't have the operator plus overloaded for integers, and neither can we access the integer implementation and add this functionality. So how can we do this? Well, the answer is to create a non-member function to overload the operator. So this is the topic that we went over in the previous video. So basically, I'm going to scroll up, and over here, I'm going to create a non-member function. So this is outside of the class, and we're going to define fraction operator plus, and here we're going to put the left hand parameter, which is the number, so int num, and I'm going to pass in fraction, so const fraction, and I can just do the same thing I did over here. So new numerator is going to be fraction dot numerator plus, and you can see we cannot access numerator since it is a private data member. So I have to use the get numerator method that I implemented before. So I take the numerator and I add num times fraction dot get denominator. And new denominator is going to be fraction dot get denominator. And I can just return fraction, new numerator, and new denominator. All right, so now we have the operator overloaded as a non-member function for adding an integer with a fraction. So now if I scroll back down, you can see the error goes away. And now if I save and run the program, we get the same thing, 41 over 15. Okay, so operators can be overloaded outside the class to support operations with other classes. Now let's go over friend functions. So classes can provide access to private fields via friend functions. And friend functions are still basically outside of the class, even though they can access private fields. So the naming kind of makes sense here. Basically, the member functions of a class would be family members, but a friend function is not really family, but can be treated like family. So if I scroll back up, you can see in this non-member function, where we overload the operator plus, we are calling get numerator and get denominator. And if this were a friend function, we don't have to use the methods. Instead, we can directly access the data members. So to declare this as a friend function, all I need to do is within the class, I'm going to do friend, and I need to type in the function signature. So fraction is the return type, operator plus. And here, I'm just going to declare the types of the parameters. I don't need to give the parameters a name, so I can do int and const reference of fraction. And with this declaration, this function is now a friend. So what I can do is, instead of using the getter, I can just type in numerator directly. And over here as well, denominator, and here as well. All right, now if I save and run a program, you can see we get 41 over 15. So same thing as before. And one thing I can do is I can associate this function with a class by putting it inside the class since it is a friend function. So I'm going to remove this and paste it in here. And I can just get rid of this declaration. And over here, I can declare this function as friend. So now this is more organized. And if I save and run the program, you can see we get 41 over 15. Okay, so the same thing as before. Alright, so that's the idea of friend functions. And even though this function is inside the class, it is still a non-member function, okay? And just as a note, you should use friend functions sparingly. Just like in real life, if you tell all your friends something, and if you have a lot of friends, that information is basically public. So too many friend functions will violate the idea of encapsulation, which includes data hiding. And although we haven't covered inheritance at this point, do note that friend functions are not inherited since they are not member functions, okay? And in the next video, I'm going to show you a more practical usage of friend functions, and that is basically overloading the OStream operator to print out the class using cout. Alright, so that's it for this video. Hopefully you found this video helpful, and if you did, make sure you give this video a like. If you have any questions, let me know down below in the comments. And as always, if you want to stay up to date for more C++ tutorials like this one, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.